Good afternoon to everybody. We're on Parshat Vayigash. We come to, in a way, the end of the saga between Yosef and his brothers. I mean, not quite. That will be next week. But the main saga, the reunification and reconciliation that there is between Yosef and his brothers, basically takes place in this week's Sedra. And there is, we know that these Sidrot, they teach us all the principles, the metaphysical laws, if you want, of Hashgacha, of Beshet, of divine providence, of how Hashem oversees things, how the interplay between free will and between the plans of Hashem. And amongst all these complicated scenarios, the Torah tells us of Yosef revealing himself to his brothers and then reassuring them that they don't have to be upset, they don't have to feel too guilty, because this is all from Hashem. And I just read out to you the pasuk in when he reveals himself, and they're so like dumbfounded that they're actually speechless, and they recoil from him. They can't even speak. They're so taken aback and shocked. And then Yosef says to them in chapter 45, he says to them, verse number 4 and 5, he says to them, Yosef says to his brothers, draw near to me, and they draw near. And then he says to them, Ani Yosef Achichem, that I'm Yosef, your brother, Hashem Machaltim Oti Mitzrayma, that you sold me into Egypt. And then he says to him, Ata, and now, Al Tayatzvu, don't be depressed, don't be sad, Al Yichar Beinechem, don't be angry with yourselves, right? Don't be too distressed, Machaltim Otahena, that you sent me here. Because it is all God sent me over here ahead of you, that I should be like a provider for you. This is just pashut. It is just pashut unbelievable. And I think in the previous years, I just pointed out that the Mesilat Yesharim, he says that when it comes to when he speaks about Shara Nekiyut, he speaks about not to take revenge. He says it's almost like a demand from angels, because there's nothing sweeter than taking revenge. So can you imagine this? Yosef says to his brothers, don't be sad and don't be cross with yourselves. Now, what does it mean, don't be cross with yourself? Why shouldn't they be sad? Why shouldn't they be so angry with themselves? Why shouldn't they kick themselves and say, "Whoa, what did we do over here?" So it's correct. Yosef is saying that Hashem, it is all from Hashem, and that he did it in order that he should be a provider for them. But still, let me give you a halachic analogy. Let's say that a person, he sees a piece of meat, or he goes into a restaurant, and he has full intention to eat pork. And then by mistake, right, the chef gave him the wrong thing. It wasn't pork. It was a vegetarian. It was a vegetarian steak, right? It turned out that he put in the wrong thing into the pita, and it happened to be something as kosher. So what's the halacha? The halacha is that person who intended to eat pork, even though he didn't eat pork, he needs a kapara. He has to bring some sort of atonement for his actions and his thoughts. He thought now that he intended to eat not kosher. By some sort of fluke, by some sort of a hand of God, something went wrong and he ate kosher. He still needs a kapara. So what does it help? What does it help now? What is Yosef saying? That Hashem now organized the plans that Yosef should be sold into Mitzrayim in order that he should be able to provide for the fledgling Jewish nation, for the 12 tribes and the brother. So does that mean that they didn't see it in that way? They wanted to injure Yosef. Why shouldn't they be sad? Why shouldn't they want to ask for kapara? very, very, these are very difficult inyanim. So Rabbi Yosef Hollander, he wanted to suggest like this. Let's take an example that I brought before, a halachic example from the Gemara in Masechet Nedarim. A person wanted to eat pork, and what he did was he ended up eating something which is kosher, right? There were two pieces on the table. He wanted to eat the non-kosher. Turned out to be that he ate the wrong one, which was kosher, wrong in inverted commas. So then he needs a kapara. He needs a kapara because he intended to do something bad. There was nothing bad that happened, but he intended to do something bad. Now, what's the difference between that and Yosef? Because the brothers of Yosef, because in the case of the brothers of Yosef, they intended to do something wrong. They weren't successful in doing something wrong, but what were they successful in doing? They were an instrument in doing something which was positive. So in other words, bottom line, the difference between the person who wanted to eat treif and he didn't eat treif, so he didn't do bad, but he didn't do good either. I mean, he did an act which is neutral. He ate something, But here, what the brothers did was they intended something bad, and now partly it was bad because Yosef suffered, but in the end, right, when we look at the whole picture, we can say it wasn't something neutral. The effects and the results weren't neutral. They were certainly, right, something which was beneficial to Yosef himself. He became a viceroy of Egypt. He now became the one who was going to care and for his brothers and for his father. He was a person who sort of paved the way for the Jewish people coming to Mitzrayim. So, bottom line, the brothers were a catalyst for doing something which is in the end came out to be good. So, in that case, if that's the case, that's why Yosef, looking at it from that whole point of view, he was able to say to his brothers, you know what? Don't be upset. This is all from Hashem. So of course, as we started off, this is really, you have to be on a very, very high level to rise above things that happen like this, and to see the bigger, to see the greater picture. This is something that people like Yosef can do. And let me end off. That's why it says that when Yosef and when the Jewish people traveled from Mitzrayim back to Eretz Israel, they went with two coffins in front of them, or they went with two caskets in front of them. The one was they carried the Aron in one like Aron, one sort of like cupboard casket, and the other one was the alongside was the casket of the remains of Yosef. And when people would say, well, what are these two these two caskets about? And they would say, so says the Midrash, this one, in other words, referring to Yosef, kept everything that is written in that casket. In other words, the Torah. To rise to such a madrega that he can see that not so much what happens to him, but to see himself as a vehicle to bring about the Yeshua Hashem. That's something which a person has to live the whole time, almost every second of the day, in the awareness that he is a Shaliach of Hashem. Al kol panim, what we did learn is one of the metaphysical laws that Hashem revealed to us through this Parsha. There are hundreds and hundreds of the laws out that put together, that's something else. But one of these laws is that when a person, even if intended something bad, and though bottom line, something very good came out of it, so then you know that somehow Hashem used him as an agent. And indeed, we have to, like Bemet, notice the fact that nowhere in the Torah, I'm not speaking about outside the Torah, but nowhere in the Torah do we find that really there was a punishment for what the Achei Yosef did, that is, they sold him. Although in the korbanot of Yom Kippurim, we have to bring one of the korbanot that has to be brought is a seir, is a goat, and that the Midrash says is a reference to what the brothers did to Yosef, and then they dipped his coat into the blood of a goat. So yes, there is partial of a kapara for what they did, but Yosef could still at the same time say, right, this principle, because you were the catalyst to do something that came out good, right? Even though you didn't intend it that way, so don't be too, from my point of view, I forgive you, and don't be too upset. So yes, the greatness of Yosef should have all Shabbat Shalom lekulam. Kol tov.